Good afternoon from Mickey and from me from Castle Goring. Well, today's quite a momentous day because William and Harry have been unveiling Diana's statue at Kensington Gardens. It would have been her 60th birthday. And I am actually not going to address that event today. If there's anything worth addressing, I will address it in the next video. But I'm not going to address it today because, truth be told, I have not had the time to actually get in touch with everybody who will be able to tell me what really has gone on, and I leave the speculation to my competitors. So let them speculate and let them report on the fact that the sun rose in the east and it's going to set in the west. I will hopefully give you rather more interesting information, such as what really has gone on behind the scenes. Okay, so having said that, I have to say, from my point of view, Diana's advent in my life actually was very momentous, because had I not come up with the idea of doing a fundraiser for 3 of her charities, which were 3 of my charities, a biography authorized focusing on her charity work, I would never have been in a position to adopt my children. And in fact, one of her cards that she played to convince me to jeopardize my social position by cooperating with her and writing a revelatory book as opposed to the anodyne book which I had contemplated, and I'd have got expenses and our charities would have made money, instead of which she convinced me to write her get out of jail card book. And I think everybody now knows that we fell out because I was not prepared to put in information which I knew was not true. And so we came to a parting of the ways. But before that, I had grave misgivings about writing a book of that nature, because at the time the protocol was anybody who wrote anything about the royal family that displeased them in the slightest, and I mean one phrase, one paragraph, one sentence in a book that was completely adulatory, they would be ostracized. And I was not eager to be ostracized. And she is the one who used to say to me, you want to be rid of your family. You want to be able to support yourself. You want to be financially independent. Not that she used those words, but that's the message. She said, you know, it's baby money. And it was baby money. And this was one of my strong incentives. There were others, but this was one of my strong incentives to continue writing the book, finish the book, publish the book before she did what I knew she wanted me to do and would therefore get someone else to do. But I have to say, I look back on that whole episode and I look back on Diana's life. And you know, she was very human. She was not perfect. Anybody who wishes to think she was perfect is deluding him or herself. But she was a person with many virtues, really many, many virtues. And there is a reason why she ascended the heights she did and had the affection that she did for the length of time that she did. She wasn't really a flash in the pan. She was on the scene, so to speak, from 1980 till her death in 1997. So that's a good 17 years. And in that period, she went from being revered to reviled to actually somebody who was struggling to make her way in the world and find her footing, and had started to do so. Now, I will not pretend that everything that Diana said or did I agreed with, because I didn't. And as far as I was concerned, my duty as a biographer was to capture the whole person, not that aspect of the person that she wished to present to the world, but the whole person. Those aspects that she did not wish to present to the world. Well, I succeeded, and she also got Andrew Morton to do her bidding. And good luck to him. He was a very faithful messenger of her story. The fact that it was not particularly true at all times, and definitely not fair very often, and that he sanctified and sanitized where I was impartial and fair and showed her as a human being, doesn't really take away from the fact that she had many gifts and that she was somebody who was deserving of a lot of the approbation that she got. So, figuratively, I will raise a glass to Diana, and I'm sure she's up there looking down on all of us. And good luck to her. She made a positive impact in many ways. And I'm not going to say anything untoward, or I'm not going to leaven the loaf with too much reality. I'm just going to toast her figuratively. And good luck to the kids as well. I'm sure it's a very poignant day for them. And I will address the ins and outs in my next video, but not in this one. So if I may, I will plunge right in with one or two things that are at the moment current. The Queen, Princess Anne in Scotland, doing what royalty is supposed to do. William, Catherine, and George, sweet little George. Isn't he adorable? You just want to eat him. He's so delicious looking. At Wembley, all of which took place day before yesterday, and yesterday, lovely. And then yesterday, Harry at the WellChild Awards at Kew. And I have to say, it was really rather interesting that they posted something about his appearance year before last. He appeared with Meghan. And he has been involved with these awards, and they are very commendable awards. And they are very encouraging of people who have children who are challenged. And to give Harry his due, he's always liked children, and he's always been good with children. And we don't want to take away from his gifts when they are justified And he is somebody who really likes children. And that, I think, is a wonderful thing. I like men who like children. But if you looked at the clips that they posted of his last appearance, it is really interesting to see that he did not speak in Meganese. I'm fudging the word, and because there are so many variations of it. Megalomaniac, meganomics, mechanisms, all of the nonsense that he has incorporated into his language. His last speech was shorn of all of that. It was properly princely. And I do wish he would get back to what he does best and what shows him in a good light, behaving princely as opposed to Prince of Montecito, which is really very much edging on cotton picking, baggering sort of times. We don't like it. No, we don't. Olaf Bolton says, are those books on the right 2 editions of Burke's Peerage by any chance? As you notice, I am starting out on a very frivolous note. Yes, they are reference books, but they are not Burke's Peerage. They are the Almanac de Gotha, which was revived by a friend of mine. And he edits them, and he gave me some of the more recent editions of them. And they are very interesting reference books. They deal with all of the royal families, the mediatized families, and the ducal families. So they don't deal generally with the aristocracy. And people often think, oh, well, such and such must be a phony because they're not in the Almanac de Gotha. The Almanac de Gotha is strictly royal or non-royal ducal, nothing else. So now we'll get down to the nitty-gritty. Margaret Williams says, Lady C, I have a question that I hope you can confirm. I read in a prior post on this site that the Queen actually went to Frogmore Castle to see Princess Eugenie and not Has. Do you know if this was true and why she would want to talk to her? I thought I read Princess Eugenie sided with the Harkles against her sister Princess Beatrice. Should she even be trusted? I love it. So, first of all, my dear, the wise members of families are those who don't take sides if they don't have to. Really. When there's a family conflagration taking place, if you can possibly avoid taking sides, don't. This is one of the foundation planks of civilized behavior in our sort of world. Not only in terms of family, but in terms of general enmity. Half the time, half the people you know are not speaking to the other half. And it is not done to expect people to take your side in any battle or struggle. People should be allowed to remain as impartial as they choose to be and not be involved in squabbles. Every now and then, there is something so outrageous that you take a stand and you say, no, I will not be seen in the same room or in the same building as that person. I have taken that position with one or two people. Everybody, I suppose, with any guts, ultimately takes that position with one or two people. But it rarely has to be something so gross and outrageous that you are compelled to say you do not want to be in the same room or house or castle or palace as that person. Prince Philip did it with Fergie. The Queen did not do it with Fergie. The Queen is a far more forgiving person than Prince Philip was. And she did not do it with Fergie, so Fergie used to be received by the Queen, even when Prince Philip would not allow her into any of the houses that he occupied. This has not happened so far with Harry and the senior members of the family. Of course, it's very easy for it to have not happened. Harry doesn't live in this country. But several of them are not on speaking terms with him, or barely on speaking terms with him. And when they speak to him, they make absolutely sure that the conversation is limited to totally anodyne subjects that he cannot twist. Eugenie and Beatrice, quite rightly, do not need to fight the fights of William, Harry, Charles, and the Queen, and they are not fighting them. And that is something that I think they should receive our support in. As for the Queen going to visit Harry, my dear, was in quarantine. The Queen is the head of state. She's not breaking her own laws. There's no way the Queen went to see Harry. She'd have had to be breaking laws to go and see Harry. And she wasn't about to be breaking laws to see Harry. Also, it would have been most inopportune of her to go and see Harry, even if she could have gone to see Harry, because Harry is not to be trusted. Harry is not to be trusted. And if you can't trust someone, the best thing to do is keep your distance. And she's done it brilliantly. There's a whole country between her and him. He's in England, she's in Scotland. So, next question. Clara Knott wants to know, I'm surprised the couple have not commented on their being sacked by Netflix. Sorry, I stumbled over the word. It's Netflix. What is next? Well, Mickey, come and console Marty. Marty's grief-stricken because Harry and Meghan are $130 million down. Mickey, come and help Marty. They're $130 million down. Not that they were ever $130 million up. Well, let us see what happens there, because I would not put it past Harry and Meghan and their PR team to be putting out misinformation so that their critics can be wrong-footed. You know, the dark arts of propaganda are very simple and straightforward, especially if you know history, and especially if you have read the diaries of Joseph Goebbels, as I have done. So, What next? Let us wait and see. Let us wait and see. Because the fact of the matter is, I'm pretty sure Harry and Meghan are struggling a lot more than they appear to be, and that they are nowhere near as flush as they would like the world to believe. Beth Garrow says, a friend says she is gathering rotten veggies all ready for Harry's return. They know the truth, but they never, big block capitals, tell it. Megs actually said that on her Actress blog, if you don't like the truth, just make up your own, which incidentally was stolen from a politician. Well, we all know that politicians have their version of the truth, and then there is the truth. And yes, I actually think that quote is in my book, because it struck me as well that Meghan would have said, and in fact, I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, I wrote it, whether it got published or not is something else again, because you might remember what you've written. You don't remember what's published because it's edited, and you don't really remember the finished product to that extent. But I think in the book I did make the point that it is a self-hypnosis, and that there is a valid degree of self-hypnosis that is involved in somebody who is disordered, very unhappy, or depressed, whatever. You tell yourself that you are feeling happy, and sooner or later you will hopefully get the hang of being happy. That sort of thing. That is recalibrating your mood and your state of mind by using the power of thought. That's not the same thing as deciding, I'm really ugly. Everybody says I'm ugly. I'm going to decide I'm beautiful. You can decide, I'm going to feel beautiful. I'm going to surround myself with an aura of beauty. And you can do that, as for instance, Diana Vreeland, the former editor of Vogue, did. And I know one or two other women who will not be named, very great social figures in London society and British society. One of whom I'm thinking of, she used to be very fat, then she became very thin, and she has never been a great beauty, but she is the ultimate in stylishness. She's got a very pale skin, very severe hair, fabulously dramatic makeup, and dresses in the most outlandishly stylish way. So she has converted what was a disadvantage into as much an advantage as she can. That's one thing. But I don't think that she regards herself as a great beauty. In fact, I know she doesn't. And she's never had plastic surgery. She's worked with what nature gave her. That is positive. But to lie to yourself and tell yourself that you're one thing when you're another is very, very dubious. Dolly Cottings says, the allegation of racism was a power play by Harry and Meghan. You can say that again. The race card is to say that the racists are not qualified to be on the throne and should not rule over people of colour. Very observant of you, my dear. The only way the monarchy and Commonwealth should continue is if they are not racist, and it is a biracial child of Harry and Meghan through Harry and Meghan on the throne. They should put them in the Tower for trying their power play for the throne. Well, I have to say, I think your observation is pretty much where it's at. Harry and Meghan have been trying to discredit the successors to the throne so that there would be a groundswell of support in favour of them being dethroned or removed from the order of succession, giving room for Harry and Meghan to be King Henry IX and Queen Megalomaniac the Ultimate, with King Archie in waiting. Can you imagine? God forbid King Archie. I mean, King Archibald, fine, but King Archie, you know? Well, Archie Bunker comes to town. But yeah, I think you've got it in one. I think that is the game plan, and that's why I did something on it to reveal it, because I think it's an odious game plan, and I think it's a dangerous game plan. And the last overambitious member of a royal family who tried that sort of nonsense was the Duc d'Orléans, who became Philippe Égalité. Philippe Égalité was the first gentleman of France. He was the grandson of the Duc d'Orléans, who was Louis XIV's younger brother. And he decided that he would be much better qualified to sit on the throne of France than Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. And he used to have pamphleteers at the Palais Royal, which was his residence in Paris. It still exists, beautiful palace, churning out pamphlets against the king and queen and destabilizing the monarchy. And he succeeded, really rather brilliantly. He rightly supposed that if there was a revolution, that Louis XVI's two younger brothers, the Counts de Provence and d'Artois, would actually emigrate, and he thought he would then be able to occupy the throne. But it didn't happen like that. The monarchy collapsed. He even voted for the execution of his cousin, the king. Great disgrace. Treachery of the highest order. And then he lost his head. He was executed as well. So, if Harry and Meghan need to read their history books before they play around with their puerile, silly games, you know. Matty B says, Lady C, and playing devil's advocate in asking, oh dear, this is going to be deeply dodgy. Do you think that Megs has internalized racism and hates herself? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I've already spoken about that repeatedly, I think. Yes, I do. I think, by her own admission, her colour was a huge problem, and I go into it in my book. And I think she actually hated the fact that she was not white. That's my opinion. And at the first opportunity, she did everything to erase all of her Afro heritage. To continue. It could be why she is so sensitive and paranoid. Yes, it could. It's certainly a part of the story, but only a part. There must have been something that made her feel that uncomfortable in the role. She is only human. Yes, I'm sure there was a lot that made her uncomfortable in that role, because I think she was bright enough to look around and see that if she was white, she was going to have an easier time of it and more options than if she was a woman of colour. I think it's as simple as that. I think it was opportunism run riot. With all due respect, what if it was you in the role and you felt like everyone was against you? Oh, well, my dear, how sweet of you to ask that part of the question. You seem to not be aware of the fact that I had a far worse fate than being a mixed race child. And I coped with it positively and constructively, not destructively. I wasn't dishonest. I didn't lurk and lie and cheat. I have always been very frank about the fact that I had a birth defect and that I was brought up in a very unfortunate way as a result of it. It's not something that I belabor. You know, birth defects and disadvantages are not hobby horses for you to flog for attention and sympathy. I have said it before and I'm going to say it again. Anybody who has been a genuine victim of fate or of hardship usually doesn't play the victim role. One of the surest signs of somebody being an opportunist is when they play the victim role. Nobody should be playing the victim role. We are all victims. Every single one of us is a victim of something. And it is destructive to play the victim role. I hope I have answered the question. If I had been in Meghan's shoes, what would I have done? Well, I'm not in Meghan's shoes, but if I had had the attributes that she had, I most likely would have worn my hair natural, because I have friends who are people of colour and they have that calibre of hair. And sometimes it's magnificent. I can think of one of them from my teenage. She was a great friend of mine called Nancy Burke. She had sort of blondish hair and she was very fair-skinned, but, you know, she was mixed race and she looked absolutely stunningly beautiful. Wild, wonderful hair everywhere. And I mean, you know, I'd most likely have done that. Would I have pinched up my nose to such an extent that it looks like a deformity and I can't hold my head up because I don't have properly formed nostrils anymore? I doubt I would have done that. Am I judging her for doing it? Not particularly. I think it's pathetic that she did it. I think it's even more pathetic that having done it, she has the unmitigated gall when she realises that it's in her interest to identify as a woman of colour, to now be doing so and beating the race drum for all it's worth very destructively. I hope I've made myself clear. I do not approve of people who use what they perceive as their disadvantages by adopting the mantle of victim and then at the same time opportunistically using their what they regard as their disadvantage to everybody else's detriment. We were all born the way we were all born, and it is up to us to make our peace with our identity. That's one of the cornerstones of healthy living. Mishley says, apparently Harry is angry with the royal family as he believes they are responsible in some way for Diana's death. Do you think that Meghan might have planted this theory into Harry's mind over the course of their relationship, or that he had considered this before she came along? Well, I know as a fact that he did not consider any of this before she came along. And yes, you know, as I said before, she is like Iago dripping poison into Othello's ear. And I think, yes, she is the one who has played upon every one of Harry's negative traits to her advantage and to his detriment. I don't think that he necessarily thinks that the royal family is responsible for Diana's death. I think he thinks the media were responsible for Diana's death. The fact of the matter is, Diana was responsible for Diana's death. She's the one who phoned up the paparazzi to chase them. She's the one who made the decision with Dodi to leave a perfectly safe and secure building to be able to play cat and mouse with the paparazzi so that they would capture pictures of her and Dodi fleeing to Dodi's flat for yet another headline. You see how dangerous headline chasing can be? And she got in the car and she didn't have on a seatbelt. Had Diana had on a seatbelt, she would have survived. Her injury was an impact injury because at the point of impact, she flew out of her seat and in so doing tore her pulmonary vein. It was an impact injury. But for not having on the seatbelt, she would have survived. So I do not see how the media are to blame either. And certainly the royal family is not to blame. And if Harry somehow thinks they are, that would be really perverse. But I do know that Meghan has dropped a lot of poison in his ear about his family. Of course, nobody's family is perfect. I'm yet to meet the perfect family. But you know, one of the cornerstones of leading a good, constructive, positive, fulfilling and fulfilled life is to come to terms with your family and to forgive them where and when you can. You don't have to like what they did, but you can forgive them. My father used to try to get me to take a dose of rat poison to commit suicide. I forgave him long ago. I understood why he did it. You have in life to understand and forgive. And if you can't, the failure is yours. It's not theirs. We need to understand that in this world, we are responsible for the state of our being and the soul, and ultimately for our happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment. No one else is responsible for it but each individual. Anne Richmond says, what on earth does it mean to live an authentic life? Do you or I or another lead unauthentic lives? It sounds overdone and crass to me, but there again, who am I to judge whilst leading an unauthentic life? This is the problem, you see. When Harry and Meghan speak about leading an authentic life, what they're doing is setting themselves up to be Petronius Arbiter. If you don't know who Petronius Arbiter was, Petronius Arbiter, the word arbiter comes from it. Petronius Arbiter was a fine judge of taste and discernment, etc., etc. And they set themselves up as arbiters of everything. They don't have the qualifications. They don't have the ability. But what they are saying to you is, we are superior and we are endowing you with our gold dust. It is the height of vanity. It's also impertinence. Lorna Lee says, I never heard of an authentic life. Didn't she refer to the chickens as authentic also? This woman is one crazy chick herself. Oh dear. Sorry. Well, you know, people who tell you how authentic they are usually phonies. When they tell you that they've had an organic experience and their relationship has grown organically, it usually means contrived. I'd suggest you read some of George Orwell's essays on language and the use of language, and how with the passage of time, by the end of the 20th century, and certainly into our century, words were going to mean the absolute opposite of what they actually meant. And we are living through these times and we are seeing it happen. Somebody in the comment section made the observation that she gets up and she goes to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and she has her perfectly ordinary job in sales in the Midwest of America, and she breaks for lunch and she comes back and she cooks for her family and she does her housework. And she wanted to know, is that an authentic life in terms of what Harry and Meghan regard as an authentic life? Well, the fact of the matter is, who knows? Because the words that they use have absolutely no meaning except to give the message that they are superior beings leading superior lives. Their misuse of the word compassion as well. I would suggest they look up what the word compassion means. And I'm amazed that Harry, who was brought up in a world and by a woman and a man who have done wonderful sterling charity work all their lives, doesn't understand that using the word compassion in the context that he does is one of the most patronizing things he can do to the people who he deigns and condescends to look down upon, one act of compassion at a time. I'm sorry, charity, the word charity means love of your fellow man. It's faith, hope, and love. But Christ said faith, hope, and charity. And of the three, charity is the greatest. Love of your fellow man. One act, compassion does not mean charity. It means suffering with someone. I have to tell you, I've done an awful lot of charity work all my life. My mother, despite her many failings, did wonderful charity work. You never condescend with people that you are giving to. You never point out to them by word or deed or even thought that you are better than them. You're luckier than them, but you're not better than them, Harry and Meghan. How dare you, from the lofty heights of your heavily mortgaged $14 million Montecito mansion, spin around and tell that you are one act of compassion at a time. You are so noble and you are so splendid and you are so fabulously superior that you are going to feel people's pain with them. That's what compassion means. Compassion means feeling somebody's pain with them. You're not feeling their pain with them, jerks and, quite frankly, idiots. You're not feeling their pain with them. You are hopefully helping them to make their lives better. And you know also, this business of everywhere you go, spreading your compassion with photographers in tow, so that people are photographed in lines when you're giving out meals. People don't want to be photographed. People don't want other people to know that they need charity. How dare you humiliate people? What do you think you're doing? You are humiliating the people. I understand that on several occasions when they have taken their photographers and the photographers have showed up and they started on their largesse. Oh, the great Duke and Duchess of Sussex have arrived to share the suffering of the masses with them. And let me give you a meal that I rustled up. Oh, people have fled. People have fled. And they make sure if they don't flee, that they hide their faces. How dare you humiliate people? Who the heck do you think you are to humiliate people who have fallen on hard times? How dare you? And you think you're being compassionate? Grow up and wise up, you jerks. So, to wrap up, Annie B says, when I commented on another actually, it's not wrapping up, it's nearly wrapping up. Sorry, I've got so carried away that I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. Annie B, when I commented on another channel about the sorority, one of the sugars replied that Harry's wife had said that she had been rejected by the black and biracial sororities because her skin was too white. Oh God, here we go again. And she had no choice but to join a white sorority, and it was a fact because Harry's wife had said it. Yes, well, Harry's wife has also said that she's white. She's also said she's mixed race. She's also said she's black. Which one is it? Harry's wife has also said she's compassionate, but doesn't speak to her father. Harry's wife has said many things that you and I would regard as untrue, and she regards as her latest version of the truth. I don't for a second believe any of it. I'd like to see the proof before I believe it. And even then, I'd have to be checking the documents to see that they were not manufactured day before yesterday. I don't believe a word of it. Caroline Fijan says, Lady C, I wonder if Meghan couldn't be queen, she would just as soon be the woman who took down the British monarchy. She would be historically renowned. That is why William can barely contain his loathing of her. What do you think? That, I think, is a very prescient and perceptive observation for you to have made. Yes, I have no doubt that had Harry been heir in line to the throne, had he been the heir assumptive or the heir presumptive, that he would have had a sterling position and remained very firmly in the British territory, and Meghan would have been right there with him doing to poor African children, "Oh, I'm a sister. I've come to show you how it's done and how you can thrive. I'm a proud, confident woman of colour, and I'm going to show you how it's done. And, so just keep your distance, so, but let me show you." She'd have been right there, stuck up under the monarchy the way deodorant sticks to armpit. That's what she'd have done. I have no doubt about it whatsoever. It's because the role was not going to make her number one, the role that she assumed when she married Harry. And she figured it's not going to work for her. And why should she give her time to all these dinky little mayors and school teachers and nurses and social workers and all those other little people that Leona Helmsley quite rightly in her book just completely thought, we're not going to worry about you, unless, of course, we need to show you compassion, in which case I'm going to show you that I'm so big-hearted that I suffer with you, as long as, when I'm through showing you how wonderful I am and how I've suffered with you, I can then traipse back to my mansion, and I can, having traipsed back to my mansion, I can live happily as the superior being that I am. I wouldn't put it past her, quite frankly, to have decided that since she can't be number one, no one is going to be number one if she has anything to do with it. And that if she can't be the queen of the universe in America, she doesn't mind destroying the royal family. And she has been doing her darndest to. Maybe she's not aware of it. I suspect she is. But let's give her credit. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's not even conscious of the fact that she is motivated in such a spiteful and niggardly way insofar as the royal family is concerned. But I wouldn't be surprised at 3 o'clock in the morning it hasn't popped into her head. I'll have a place in history if I bring down the monarchy. So even if it's not her primary objective, it would be welcome collateral damage, because she knows she'd go down in history books as the woman who brought down the monarchy, in much the same way that you have, sickos who will, "Oh, is that the last snow leopard on earth? I think I'd like it shot so that I can have it on my floor. Oh, how chic I am." There's a form of chic that is seriously sick and seriously destructive and seriously untoward. Maybe I'm doing her a grave injustice. Maybe she wouldn't ever have a thought like that crossing her mind. But of her conduct and of the destructive way she has gone about things and the creatively destructive way she has gone about things, I wouldn't put it past her. So, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I think it's a very perceptive observation. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. And please keep the questions coming in. And for those of you who do not know, put them in the comments section and they will reach me. Thank you very much and goodbye. God bless.